But basically, our body's not designed to take in hormones. We're supposed to make our hormones. And what I've done in Beyond Mars and Venus is I've actually explained in hormonal terms all of the differences between men and women I talked about in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Because it can all be now explained. I just said we're from Mars and Venus, that's why we're different. Just accept our differences and go for it. Now I actually have the biological understanding of what's causing those differences. And then you have to elevate it. Men Are From Mars was written 25 years ago, more traditional relationships, where women actually were making healthier levels of hormones and men had healthier levels of male hormones. The testosterone, men need to make 10, 20, 30 times more testosterone than a woman needs to make in order to feel well-being, and in order to feel romantic feelings, in order to feel happy and fulfilled with himself. The hormones regulate a lot of this.
Welcome to the Woman's Doctor podcast, helping empower women to embrace their body and soul's full potential. I'm your host, Dr. Trevor Cates, and after 22 years of working with patients, I found the answers to our health struggles are much deeper than most people realize. To help explore this, I'm interviewing colleagues and other wellness experts to get to the root cause so women can realize their true beauty and be informed decision makers for themselves and their loved ones. Did you know that hormones affect our relationships? Since healthy relationships are key to our health, I asked today's top relationship expert to come on the podcast. My guest is Dr. John Gray, who is the author of one of the most well-known and trusted relationships books, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. USA Today listed his book as one of the top 10 most influential books of the last quarter century. In hardcover, it was the #1 best-selling book of the 1990s. Dr. Gray has written over 20 books. His most recent book is Beyond Mars and Venus, Relationship Skills for Our Complex Modern World. John helps men and women better understand and respect their differences in both personal and professional relationships. He has appeared repeatedly on Oprah, The Dr. Oz Show, Today, Good Morning America, and many other TV shows. Today, John shares with us what he's seen as patterns in relationships and how changes in hormones impact our relationships and behavior. This and much more on today's episode of the Woman's Doctor podcast. John, it's so great to have you on the Woman's Doctor podcast. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be with you. I'm very excited about the work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm excited to talk to you because Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus is one of the most well-known and trusted relationship books of all times. Can't believe it's been printed in 50 languages and it's in over 150 countries. Amazing that you have done this work. But this book was done a while back, and you've got another book since then that is Beyond Mars and Venus. And so can you get us caught up? Because I know, a lot probably has changed since you wrote the first book. So what's changed?
Well, as you know, our hormones have been changing, and hormones control almost everything. Your health, your mood, your well-being, your sleep, and all those different things. And due to the shift in the consciousness on the planet, as also reflected in the toxicity of the planet, our hormones have gone out of balance. And while it's a popular thing to point out that, we know that the pesticides, the things they put in our food, if you give them the male frogs grow vaginas. Okay, so they have the DNA of a male, but they become a female. These are called hormone disruptors, and GMOs, toxicity, pesticides, and also one of the major ones is just water in a plastic bottle. The plastic gets into our system, and it's a hormone disruptor. And the outcome of that is that for women, when they're called xenoestrogens. Okay, so this is estrogen externally coming into us. Now, certain foods do have a little estrogen in them, which is soy, for example. But basically, our body's not designed to take in hormones. We're supposed to make our hormones. And what I've done in Beyond Mars and Venus is I've actually explained in hormonal terms all of the differences between men and women I talked about, and men are from Mars, women are from Venus, because it can all be now explained. I just said we're from Mars and Venus. That's why we're different. Just accept our differences and go for it. Now I actually have the biological understanding of what's causing those differences. And then you have to elevate it. Men are from Mars was written 25 years ago, more traditional relationships where women actually were making healthier levels of hormones and men had healthier levels of male hormones. The testosterone, men need to make 10, 20, 30 times more testosterone than a woman needs to make in order to feel well-being, and in order to feel romantic feelings, in order to feel happy and fulfilled with himself. The hormones regulate a lot of this. And now it's, look at a 20-year-old man, a 20-year-old young man, his testosterone levels on average in our country are 20% lower than 20 years ago. This dramatically affects relationships. And in working with women, that there's all these new hormonal challenges that women are having. Or you point out to women that when you're having these other challenges of obesity and sleeplessness and stress, it's all being regulated by a hormonal imbalance. And what does that look like? So we'll talk about that today. That sounds like a fun thing. I love doing it. It's in my book, Beyond Mars and Venus. And we'll definitely get to the tip of the iceberg, the most important things, which is to realize that the hormonal balance between estrogen, progesterone, oxytocin, and testosterone is essential. For men, it's pretty much just testosterone. If testosterone goes up, he experiences well-being. He experiences a sense of power and confidence, and I got to do something. I'm motivated. And then when his fear comes up, if he has low self-esteem, he has insecurities, he doubts, then at challenging times, his estrogen levels, the female hormone, will go up. You see, fear, whenever you're feeling fear, estrogen's going up. And for a man, when estrogen's going up, his testosterone tends to go down. That's just the way it is. The only time a man's, just to be personal here, because you're the doctor, the only time a man's estrogen level goes really high and his testosterone goes high is when he's making love. And that's because he's getting the most powerful testosterone stimulant you can have, which is a female's love for him. And whether she loves him or not, his primitive brain thinks she loves him if she takes off her clothes. That's it. See, these are all primitive things. These are, biological reactions. When a male sees a woman undressing, the reaction here is that she wants to have sex with me. And for thousands, millions of years, females want to have sex with males when males look good to them, capable, competent, someone who can provide something meaningful to them. I remember being on the Galapagos Islands, and, these birds, they're all, the females are flying around and the males are kind of strutting their stuff, their wings, or see who I am too. And then the females would pick the man that was the strongest. And that's always been the whole thing. And so there's a biology to, if a woman wants to have sex with you, it means she thinks you're the strongest, even though she doesn't. but the brain thinks it, and his testosterone levels go up. Otherwise, when estrogen levels go up, his testosterone tends to go down. And let me give you an example of this and why we're looking at men, because we all want good relationships with men. So we understand them better. It starts to make sense. We want to make sense of our relationships and our own happiness as well. Statistically, we're looking at our country and all the men. They got millions of men in these studies because they've got the database of people who get their hormones tested. And what they found is that the men who have the highest testosterone compared to other men, it's all lower now. Everybody at every age, it's lower dramatically, at least 10, 20% lower than it used to be 20 years ago. Not just for young men, but, I'm 70 years old, and, the average 70-year-old has less than 50% of his testosterone levels. I don't mean to be bragging, but somebody's got to realize that that's a big lie. I'm 70 years old and my testosterone is 50% higher than a young man. And it's relationships. Everything that stimulates hormones is your relationships, and how you respond in relationships determines your hormones. So when a man feels, look what I can do, his testosterone comes up. If there's a fire, for example, and he's a fireman, his testosterone levels will shoot up. A job to do. I have a meaning in life. I have purpose. I have a wife and I made money today. I'm going to bring it home to her. Well, that shoots his testosterone up. However, if his wife doesn't need the money, it doesn't make the testosterone go up. See, women had a huge, both couples, men and women 50 years ago, had a huge advantage when it came to the world. And it's out of date without a doubt. But when you used to depend on a man for money, food, survival, just him bringing home enough money for food would raise your estrogen. Estrogen goes up when you depend on someone for something. That's relationships. So we have relationships where not depending on so much, say you're making money, well, you're depending on something impersonal. That doesn't make estrogen. Personal is estrogen. So I'm depending on this business to make money. That makes testosterone. Impersonal. I'm fixing your computer. That's going to make testosterone. If I'm doing something that's personal, then estrogen goes up. Now, ideally, we can be doing both at the same time. But the reality is different relationships, the context of a relationship stimulates different hormones. And we'll get to that because so much of the emphasis today, and it's not your full emphasis, but, hormone replacement and all of that, there's certain contexts where maybe that's necessary, primarily because we don't have a context yet to realize what kind of relationships will stimulate the hormones you need. And this is amazing. So I was making a quote here just so you understand this is simple stuff. This isn't complex biology that needs to be tested. It's already been tested. It's just nobody put it in this framework. So single men have the highest testosterone. When a man's in love, his testosterone goes up. Okay. When a man's putting out a fire, his testosterone goes up. When a man is angry, most people think his testosterone goes up. No, his testosterone went up to solve a problem, and it looks like he's not able to solve the problem. And now he's blaming somebody as being no good. He suddenly has fear. Oh, this isn't working. Now his estrogen levels go high, and then he feels angry. All anger in men is not testosterone. It's estrogen going too high. It's hormonal balance. These grumpy men, irritable, or passive men, are pouting men, arguing men, raising their voice men. All of these men at that moment, their testosterone's going down, their estrogen's going up. So what we want to do is it puts a whole context. Men, how do you succeed in a relationship? Make sure you're making testosterone. Women, how do you succeed in communicating with a man? Oh, learn the tips, the practical tips to raise his testosterone and keep his estrogen down. This is amazing. It's the opposite of what everybody thinks. You see, we have to understand men and women are different. Yeah. Now, for women, so independence is like a big quality of testosterone. I can do it myself, and we can do it together is estrogen. So when a woman goes to a therapist, I'm a therapist 40, 50 years, different types of therapy, but 50 years. What happens is 90% of the people who go to therapy are women. And as you know, as a doctor, that many more women come to doctors than men do. Men wait till they're dying before they ask for help. So, it used to be that way, at least. Now men are feminized. When men are feminized, their estrogen levels are too high. So they hesitate to make a commitment. They lose interest in sex with their partner. They're passive, they're grumpy, they're irritable, but they could also be good guys. It's just, I'm looking at the complaints I hear from women. I hear them all the time, just so many women like, where do you find a conscious man? Where do you find a good man? Well, you made him that way. You don't know how you did it. So I have to explain. And also the good news is once you understand, every relationship is reciprocal. If you make a change, it will change him. For example, women say, I want these conscious men. What you want is a man. What you're getting now is this guy talking about his feelings and being upset and being depressed and being anxious and no libido, addicted to porn, addicted to alcohol, all these qualities of addiction that men have, it could be addicted to work, are estrogen too high. You see, whenever you're depending on something for you to be happy, your estrogen goes up. If you depend on yourself to feel good, then your testosterone goes up. You depend on yourself to achieve a goal, and that will make you feel good. So this is simple. This ABC became so clear. What we need today, what women need is relationships that will help stimulate more estrogen to balance the testosterone they're making by being independent. So again, where does this come from? Okay, simple study. Single men have the highest testosterone. As soon as they get in a committed relationship, that means love. You just don't feel this more of a love for someone. You want to this could be the one you want to share your life with. You have romantic feelings towards. Well, there's a big drop in testosterone. This is men in committed relationships have lower testosterone levels than single men. Then he gets married, it takes a notch down and his estrogen goes up. Why? What's going on? You see, love is estrogen stimulating. If you love someone, your estrogen goes up in their presence. If you love your work and there's no stress, oh, your estrogen's going high. But if you don't love your work, if you don't love your life, if you don't love getting up in the morning and going to work, then you do it because you have to do it. And whenever you do anything and you feel like, oh, I have to do this, you're making testosterone. That's your male side. You see, we men are designed to do that. If you look historically, men did not complain about doing dirty jobs, dangerous jobs, difficult jobs, hard jobs, deprivation jobs, austere jobs. We're fine to do it. That's why men go to the army. And now women are going to the army. We have to change all the rules. We have to make it softer. You don't have to work so hard. You be more protected. Now they want to talk, have discussions to talk about things. That's a new thing in the army. Men do not need to talk about their feelings when they're required to handle a big challenge, because talking about your feelings increases estrogen. The problem with men today, too much estrogen, low testosterone. So, here I'm a grandfather. Okay. So I have very high estrogen levels. Okay. So most men, as it's natural for your estrogen go higher and higher, but I have relationship skills that keep my testosterone higher than my estrogen. Otherwise I would be passive. What do men do when they're 55, 60, 65? They retire. They don't want to work. See, that's a symptom of low testosterone. Now they have higher wisdom if they can keep their testosterone up. If they can't, then they have the common symptom of grumpy old men. They become grumpy and they become rigid. And then you get women, as they're getting older and their estrogen levels are dropping. Now they're going to be like, I'm going to do it myself. I can't depend on men at all. and yet, you're going through your 40s, you've been divorced once or twice, and you're looking around, I just can't fall in love with these guys. Why can't I fall in love? Because you can't get your estrogen up to where it rings the bell of falling in love. It's not that men are not good enough. It's that you're not connected with your estrogen levels. So you're wearing a different set of glasses. Okay, these glasses go dark when you look into the light. This is what happens to women when their estrogen levels are low. If they look at a possible man, their brain goes right into everything that's wrong with him instead of everything that's right with him. This is biology. This is when your estrogen levels start to drop as you're a woman, the hormone cortisol levels will start to go up. That's it. How do I know that? Okay, because whenever a woman is producing cortisol, the stress hormone, her estrogen levels are too low or her estrogen levels are too high when she's towards her period. See, for women, and you know this, but some women don't, so I'll share it. You have your period, your estrogen and progesterone very low. Then you come out of that for about 5 days. And at that time, your estrogen levels slowly starting to rise and your testosterone levels are rising as well. Nothing like a man's, but for a woman, that's your time where you kind of feel more ambitious. I can do this, I want to do that. But 6 days after your bleeding stops, now you've got 5 days to prepare to get pregnant. Your body's designed to make a baby at that time, to ovulate. To ovulate, your estrogen levels have to double. So what is it that stimulates estrogen? It's when you feel, oh, I can get what I need. You suddenly start feeling your needs more because biologically you need a man. And they've done studies that show that when a woman is ovulating, men look much more attractive, particularly muscular men, which is for the primitive brain. It's like you need a big guy to protect you in this world. And, you can just, your hormones change even when you see somebody who's really big. This is biology. In the same way for a man, when he sees a naked woman, his testosterone levels will go up. But the problem is it goes right back down and it goes back down lower unless he actually has a relationship that sustains the feeling that she's interested in him sexually. This is amazing stuff. And of course, what do couples complain about as their testosterone levels go down? He's no longer interested in sex. Usually there's this turning point in a marriage where he's always trying to get sex and she's not in the mood. She's not in the mood, occasionally in the mood, feels like he's trying to convince her. Is she not, So that's the younger man once his testosterone is up and says, I need to have sex. Because see, what's happening when you're having sex if you're a man? You basically, testosterone rises in the presence of her. And so when testosterone goes up, happiness occurs, ecstasy occurs, pleasure occurs when your estrogen levels and testosterone levels are rising together. Okay. So her getting naked for him and being interested in having sex with him at a primitive level, this is all subconscious, unconscious stuff. This is monkey stuff, right? And when I was a teenager, I could look at a mannequin and get erection. This is just monkey stuff. I didn't even know what sex was, and erection popped up and as a teenager. So this is all biology. The sex organs are organs that you just cannot control consciously. A guy can't just go up, go down. No, it doesn't happen that way. It's the quality of your relationship and the conditioning around your relationship. So basically, when his testosterone goes up, there's a tendency of wanting to balance that. And so if you can balance your male hormones with your female hormones, you'll experience something called ecstasy and love and positivity. And we all get glimpses of that when we make love. It's called making love for a reason. You actually feel more loving when you do it. And if men, what I learned in 7th year of my marriage with my wife, Bonnie, of 34 years. Now, I refer to Bonnie in most of my examples because that's when I learned all this. She passed on. And now it's been 4 years. So I'm gone through the grieving stage, major part of devastating to me, huge amount of estrogen coming up. And that's natural. Okay. When big things happen, it's good for men to cry and be upset. Okay. But when little things happen, men need to suck it up. You don't want to ask your husband when he comes home from work, how you feeling? No, you could talk about something happened and you say, what do you think about that? He'll talk then. If you ask a man how you're feeling, it makes him feel worse, because talking about your feelings, talking about what's going on inside of you, how you reacted to things produces estrogen. That's why we have this thing called talk therapy. Nobody goes to talk therapy unless you're a woman, except some feminized men. So I've watched it over time a bit more, but it doesn't empower them at all. For a woman to talk about her feelings and be heard and seen, see, that's the equivalent of a big, strong man protecting you from lions, tigers, and bears. Okay. If you've got lions, tigers, and bears, you need a big, strong man to protect you who's happy to go out there and fight them for you. And you don't have to do it. My gosh, wouldn't that be great? Yeah. I just listening to a woman comedian today. I just have to say it. I hear a joke. I like to say it. She's saying, reading this book, Lean In, the feminist book, Lean In. And I said, okay, get out there and do your job and lean into it. I said, for me, I'd rather just not lean in. I like to lie down. It's very, very funny. Taking things to the extreme makes it humorous. And
right.
From my message and where I come from is my wife has a job. My new partner has a job. It's good to feel your independence if you're a woman, because now you're experiencing both independence and dependence. You're in a relationship. So you're making your testosterone and you're making your estrogen. And after you ovulate, you're going down towards your period. That's a time where too much estrogen is not good, but your estrogen has to be a little bit lower than your progesterone. And what produces progesterone is relationships which are interdependent, reciprocal, more reciprocal, not so much dependent, but reciprocal, like you're playing cards with friends, you're making a dinner with others, you're taking a hot bath, you're enjoying time in your garden. You're not so dependent on it, but as when you're feeling your estrogen levels need to go up, it needs to be you're getting something from someone that you can't give to yourself. Okay, mm-hmm. So that's the whole key to it. That's estrogen. And then there's the progesterone, and then there's testosterone. And a big part of what is it when they call it estrogen dominance? I'm sure you talk about estrogen dominance, and we talk about too much estrogen. Really, it's just not enough progesterone. And the reason it's not enough progesterone is because when you're making testosterone, you use up progesterone. When I make testosterone, it comes from a different part of my body. Okay, it comes from the balls. But for a woman, it comes from her adrenal gland, which is also making her progesterone. So you're ripping yourself off of progesterone when you're feeling at work, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this to make my money. If I don't do this, even if I don't like doing this. See, whenever you're sacrificing as a woman, you're making testosterone. When a man sacrifices, no problem. Okay, as long as he's getting money or he's getting a reward for it. We're built for sacrifice. Women are not. Okay, you're built to love. So one little tip you can do is when you're starting to feel you're burning out. Okay, you're into this. I have to do this. I really don't want to do this. Well, ask yourself at that time. At least some mental adjustment can help. Well, why do I have to do this? Well, because I want to do this. Because I want to make money. I want to express my talents. I want to get respect and appreciation from others, or I want to go pick up my kids today. I want to make this meal for them. because I love them. You have to come back to feeling love. When you feel love, when you feel happiness, when you feel gratitude, when you feel hopeful, and when you feel proud, that's all estrogen feelings. I suggest every woman, one of my basic techniques in my book is called the feeling. Well, there's many names to them, but this is the simple one. It's called the Venus talk. And the Venus talk is where you check into your emotions. It will produce your estrogen. Positive or negative emotion, it doesn't matter. You'll always make estrogen. But if you go to a therapist and they just have you talk about how you feel, and you just go into, well, I'm getting this and I don't get this, I never get this, I never get this, and maybe you got to try this, maybe try that. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, you didn't make any progress. Whenever somebody's in a victim state, you have to take them back to realizing how they're creating the problem. And all of your negative emotions, yeah, the world causes you to feel that way, but it's really your interpretation of the world that's causing you to feel that way. And you can look at things differently. But once you're in a negative state, you tend to get locked into looking at more reasons why I should feel like a victim. I can be unhappy because he's not changing. So the whole thing I do with my clients, it's just, and they get it. It just takes a while. But if you would only change, then I would be happy. And I go, right. Hold on now. You have to realize that when you change, yes, he's causing you to feel unhappy. You're depending on him to make you feel. That's why you make estrogen, but they're all negative instead of positive feelings. Gratitude. I'm depending on him and I'm grateful. I'm depending on him and I'm happy because he's in my life. I'm depending on him because I'm hopeful. I'm depending on him because I'm such a good person. Okay. And I deserve it. All right. So those are the positive side of things. But negative emotions, whether they're negative or positive, they produce estrogen. And negative is more addictive than positive. This is a survival instinct in our brain, which says that if something bad happened, you have to protect yourself from it forever or you'll die. So there's a bias in our brain to look at the negative, and that bias shows up as soon as your estrogen levels go down. This is why it's so important.
Yeah, so interesting. And I think that there's a lot we can learn about how we can show up differently for our partner or in relationships overall. And it's interesting what you're talking about. I realized my girlfriends, I just got married. So it's a really exciting time for me.
Oh, great. I don't mean to be so negative here, but it happens for a lot of people after a while.
No, but I mean, like right now, I want to spend all my time with my husband, right? But I know that my relationship with my girlfriends is so important because we need that, time to support each other's estrogen and progesterone, right? That, talking about our emotions and our feelings and sharing that with each other and coming up with things to do together and supporting one another, right? But then it's also important to show up for my husband, right? And it's just different how we relate with both sexes. Thank you for listening to the Woman's Doctor podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with the women in your life. And to learn all about balancing hormones, join us for the Hormones, Health, and Harmony docuseries at thewomansdoctor.com.